Most of us start the year full of good intentions, but by February, the meetings, the emergencies, the team issues, they've taken over. And suddenly your career is something that just happens to you. Not this year, not in 2026. Today, we're building the leadership roadmap that puts you back in the driver's seat of your career. Because here's the truth. Your calendar won't create clarity for you. Your company won't magically prioritize your development. And hoping that this year things change is not a leadership strategy or a career strategy. If there's one thing I've seen again and again with the extraordinary women I coach, whether they're directors, senior ICs, emerging leaders, or sitting in the C-suite or the CEO suite already, it's this. Without a clear leadership roadmap, the year becomes reactive. With a clear leadership roadmap, the year becomes transformational. So if you ended 2025 feeling overworked and under-recognized, stuck in execution instead of growth, constantly proving your worth but not moving up, and maybe being the only woman in the room carrying more emotional labor than your title reflects, or just quietly frustrated that you should be further along, you are exactly who this episode of Leading Women in Tech is for. Because today isn't about resolutions. It's not about setting 47 goals you'll forget by March. And it's definitely not about pushing yourself harder. You've done enough of that. Let's stop that. This is about power, clarity, intention, and designing a year that supports the leader you're becoming, not the role you've outgrown. And when I say leader you're becoming, that might be a new job, but it might be just becoming a better leader in the role you're in. Sometimes I work with CEOs just to help them become better. They've already reached that top level, but it's about really embracing their leadership and being the person who is ready for that next step. If you listen to my last solo episode of 2025 on mindset, you've already started laying the foundation for this. Because mindset is what opens the door and a roadmap is what moves you through that door. So today I'm going to walk you through a step-by-step, simple 2026 leadership roadmap exercise. It's super simple. It's the same process I use inside my coaching programs to help women shift from invisible to influential, from overwhelmed to in control, and from plateaued to promotable. So by the end of this episode, you're going to have a clear North Star for 2026. A high focus area to develop that will actually move your career forward. The habits, the boundaries that are going to protect your energy, and a simple structured plan for how to grow as a leader this year intentionally, strategically, sustainably. We're here for all of it. No more hoping the year is going to be different. We're making it different. So let's dive on in. Before we map out your 2026 leadership roadmap, we need to do something that most of us skip. And it's one of the biggest reasons they repeat the same career patterns year after year. We need to look back. Now, this is not about judging yourself. It's not about reliving the stress. I'm not here for that. But we need to look back to extract data. Leadership, great leaders always self-reflect, and that leadership self-reflection, that's going to shape the decisions you make moving forward. So this is not about judgment. It's about curiosity. It's about interest. It's about what went well, what didn't go well, what would I do differently next time? I love those 3 questions. Great leaders ask those every day. We're going to ask it on a bigger scope in terms of the whole of last year. So when you take a deep breath, maybe grab your notebook and walk through this quick audit with me. So here's some questions to ask yourself. And by all means, pause as you go. Listen to the question. I quite often have some prompts after the question as well. Pause the episode, write down what you think, right? This episode is doing a whole plan in a few minutes, and really you need a bit longer than that. So here we go. Here are the questions. What actually worked in 2025? Where did you lead well? What did you feel proud of? Where did you create momentum? That's the first question. What actually worked for you last year? Question number 2, what drained you? Which projects, people, habits, expectations, what pulled you into burnout patterns? And if you are overextended, this one is especially for you. So what drained you last year? Question number 3, what did you learn about yourself as a leader last year? Where did you show confidence? Where did you have self-doubt sneaking in? Where did your leadership mindset shift? That's question number 3. And question number 4, where did you grow last year? Where did you disappear instead of growing last year? If you are one of those invisible leaders, this is a big moment for you. If you have been the leader, but you've not been recognized, what happened there? Where did you hold back? What was in your control rather than everybody else's control? Where did you allow yourself to be overlooked? That is you about taking agency. This is not telling you that you've done something wrong. Take agency here. Where did you allow yourself to be overlooked because it felt easier in that moment? That doesn't mean you're going to necessarily do something different, but let's just be honest with where did you go? I'm just going to allow that to go because it's easier than pushing. And where did you wait for permission instead of stepping up? That one's a biggie. Where did you wait for permission instead of stepping up? And then the 5th final area to look at. What supported you and what sabotaged you? Because leadership isn't just about skills, it's about patterns. So what supported you last year? Where did it work well? Who was supporting you? What patterns, what behaviors? And what sabotaged you? What held you up? What wasn't supporting you? Who wasn't supporting you? Who undermined you? And that can be all sorts of people, not just your boss, but your team, your peers. Random people in the organization might have undermined you in some way. But then what behaviors are undermining you? What attitudes are undermining you? What stories are you telling yourself that are actually undermining your performance? This really matters for you because each of us needs this in a different way. If we're focused on proving ourselves, this step will help you see that working harder wasn't the thing that moved you forward last year. Strategy is. If you're constantly overextending yourself, this exercise will finally name the burnout for what it is. You've been pushing through it so you can stop repeating it this year. If you're doing all the things, but still basically invisible to the decision makers, this step, this reflection is going to reveal how invisibility actually played out last year. Not as a personality trait, but as a pattern that you can control and change. And if you're focused on strategically building your career, this step is going to reflect every part of that journey that worked, what didn't work, where you can be more strategic and lean into that this year. I want all of you to be strategically building your career. And I know some of you have listened to this podcast, you're already there. But for some of you, you're there, but there's work to be done. And the most strategic people are always reflecting backwards. But also the final one, if you're the only woman in the room, this helps you extract insights from a year where you've likely been too busy to pause because it is exhausting being the only something in the room, whether it's a woman or something else. Now, before we start layering in goals or habits or strategies, we now need your North Star. This compelling vision of who you want to be by the end of 2026. Without a North Star, your default of doing what you've always done is going to be reacting, firefighting, hoping somebody notices you. Somebody says, oh yes, we should promote her. Getting swept into everybody else's priorities. So today, I want you to imagine yourself 12 months from now. It's December 2026. You're closing out the year and you're proud. You're truly proud of who you've become this year, what you've achieved, the challenges that you've faced. I want you to take a few minutes to define this version of you. This is going to become your North Star. Now, we can do bigger versions of this, and I do that with my clients. But for right now, let's just do this 2026 version of you. What role do you want to be in? Now, don't choose a safe answer. I want the true one, the one that's uncomfortable, the one that's like, could I? That sounds impossible. What role do you want to be in? This is going to be your North Star. It doesn't mean you have to achieve it. It's your sense of direction. What do you want to be perceived as? How do you want to be perceived? Strategic, influential, confident, trusted by leader of leaders? Who and how do you want to be perceived? What do you want to be known for? Your clarity, your impact, your communication, your ability to elevate your team. There's so many things I could throw in there. What do you want to be known for? What does influence look like to you? Who knows your work? Who advocates for you? Where does your name come up in conversations, especially when you're not in the room? And most importantly, what version of you are you going to step into? Because this is not about tasks. This is about identity and impact. This step, again, this 2026 North Star truly matters because whether this allows you to imagine a future where you're not just performing, but being seen, or whether it's about stopping thinking in the short term and start thinking in long-term positioning, Maybe it's finally giving yourself permission to name your desires instead of reacting to everybody else's desires about your career. And by the way, that can be loved ones as well. Sometimes our loved ones have desires for our career that stifle our own desires. So give yourself permission here to name your desires. You can work it and sharing it. You don't have to share it straight away if that's too much. And clarifying the long-term trajectory towards that elusive executive role that maybe you're on the path to. Or maybe you're on that road, but there's something else. Or maybe it's allowing yourself to finally anchor a strategic vision so you don't get swallowed by noise this year. If you can name what you want, it's time to then make the most important empowering parts of this process. Because once you know what you want, you can identify the gaps between where you are today and who you want to become. Without that North Star, you can't do that. This is not about judgment. This is not about being enough. This is about clarity, the kind of clarity that accelerates growth. So I want you to look at that North Star, that 2026 vision, and ask yourself, what skills or strengths do I need to develop to step into that version of me? Think about strategic thinking, influencing, cross-functional leadership. One of the things I do a lot with clients is we go through a leadership audit, like what are they good at, what are they not good at, where are the gaps? And then we cross-reference it with what do they actually need? You don't need all the skills. You need the ones that are relevant to who you want to be, the work you want to do. So you need that North Star. And then you say, what am I missing that is hindering that version of myself to show up today? Because you need to show up as that person before you can then go and be that person, if you see what I mean. Next question, where am I invisible or underknown in my organization? This is such a biggie, especially for so many brilliant women like you who've relied solely on performance instead of visibility and influence. So where are you invisible or underknown in your organization? And the next question to ask yourself with that vision in mind, where am I missing advocacy or sponsorship? Now, this isn't just advocacy and sponsorship for any old version of you. This is advocacy for that next version of you. No one moves into a senior role without people who open doors for them. And the worst thing is when we have an advocate who's opening the doors at the wrong level. So look at that vision and say, have I got an advocate or advocates, sponsors who are opening at that next level rather than just, yeah, she'd be great at this. And it's just a parallel opportunity that's not aligned with what you want. Next question. What confidence or voice gaps do I need to be closing? Where are you still holding back? Where are you not speaking up? Where are you not claiming space? Or where are you claiming the wrong space? Sometimes, this was me, I spoke up in the wrong places. I always had a voice. I'm quite a picky person. I think the only time I shut up was during my undergraduate degree, where I was scared of speaking up. But I always had a voice. But I wasn't necessarily speaking up in the right places with the right points. I was just speaking all the time. So it's really worth asking yourself, are you speaking up and are you speaking up in the right space? Are you claiming space? Are you claiming the right space for that 2026 vision of yourself? And then the final question on this section, where am I overwhelmed? What boundaries are missing? If you want a different year, you cannot make the same mistakes you did last year. You cannot take the same patterns into 2026. So what strategic skills do you need to be building? This is often the difference between being seen as a doer and being seen as a leader. Each of us moves into clarity here in a deeply personal way. If you've been historically invisible, this is your moment to realize I'm not overlooked because I'm not good enough. I'm overlooked because the people who matter can't see me. You finally understand which visibility gap to close, and you have some agency there. Some of this you can act on. I really want all of you to have agency. It feels like in this world, it's all like everybody else controls our lives. You do have more agency than you realize. I'm not saying that miraculously we can get rid of all the problems, but take some agency back. So if you've been historically invisible, it's time to recognize you can have some agency in closing that visibility gap. If instead you've been the one that's been focused on proving yourself, it's now time to recognize that your challenge isn't a lack of skill. Is that you've been investing in the wrong things. It's time to shift from execution to strategy. If you've been constantly overextended for the last year or two, it's time to recognize that boundaries aren't selfish, they're leadership. I talk about that one so much on this show. Shouldn't be a surprise to you if you've been around here for a while. But boundaries are leadership. It's time to recognize that overwhelm is not inevitable. It is addressable. And if you've been rising strategically and you're now focused on the next step, then you should now have clearly identified the competencies you need to be seen as that next level ready leader who's influential, who has stakeholder management toolkits, has strategic executive presence, all the things. And if you've been the only woman in the room, it's time to get clarity on refinement areas. The small shifts, agency again, that will amplify your effectiveness at that senior leadership table. Okay, let's talk about a roadmap framework for you. So now you've got all the core components. You've got that destination, your North Star. You understand the gaps between you and that version of yourself. So now we need to build a roadmap, right? Again, we could spend ages here. We don't have time for that in today's show. So I want to give you like the high level, and then it's your job to go and fill some of this in, right? The structure I'm going to share with you is something that you can use all year long to give yourself a framework. It's 5 core pillars, but you're going to choose one pillar. Each of these pillars is something that I see every woman needing to grow in. And what I want you to do is choose the one that's most relevant for this point in your career. Here they are. Pillar 1, visibility and influence. How you become more known, more heard, more trusted. This is especially for any of you who are invisible. This is non-negotiable. If you are lacking visibility and influence, this is your pillar. Pillar 2 is strategic skill development. What are the 1 to 2 strategic competencies that will make you executive or director ready? You're thinking here, strategic thinking, communication, cross-functional leadership, decision-making. It's strategic skill development. The things that are going to make you skill-wise that next level leader, okay? Pillar number 3, relationships and sponsorships. If this is the one you're lacking, this is the pillar to choose. Who needs to know your work? Who are your advocates? Who are your stakeholders? Senior leaders are elevated through relationships, not effort. So if you have the relationships, this one is not for you. If you don't, this is your number 1 pillar. If you know that you've got the visibility in some respects, but not the relationships, you know you've got the skills, but not the relationships, then pillar 3 is for you. Okay, pillar number 4, execution and boundaries. So this one's for you if you spent most of last year overwhelmed. If you are always saying yes, you're always firefighting, you feel like you have no time for you, this is your pillar this year. What will you stop doing so you can create space for you and your leadership? How will you protect your energy? What systems or habits will help you stay out of overwhelm? This is your pillar. Take execution and boundaries and figure out all the things you need to do around it. And then the 5th and final pillar, career milestones and opportunities. What tangible markers are going to move you forward? So this is for you. If you've ticked 1 through 4, like you're like, okay, I'm ready. I just need that promotion conversation. I just need that stretch assignment. I just need that cross-functional leadership opportunity. I just need a board presentation. You basically, all the other 4 pillars are really strong. You need a new scope of responsibility, perhaps. Then this one is for you. You're going to pick 1 pillar for the year, just 1 pillar. Now, the cool thing about this is you can revisit this. So if you work on a pillar and you come up with measurable, aligned goals, focus on your North Star, focus on impact that are aligned with this pillar, impact, not volume, and you achieve those and you go check, you can come back to these 5 pillars, maybe in Q2, maybe in Q4, and be like, I've got there. I can choose the 2nd pillar, which is now my weak spot, because all of those 5 pillars, you need a new level every time you level up, right? And so you'll have 1 weak spot, you fix that and it becomes your strength, then you need to find your new weak spot. So I want you to choose 1 pillar right now, 1 thing. You've got so many other priorities in your life, routine, family and work, so many other things. I want 1 pillar for you to work on. The goal here is to know the number 1 area that is holding you back right now. Not 5, not 10, but 1. You can always revisit this roadmap later, but identifying the 1 area that is your weak spot and focusing on leveraging and improvement in that this year is what's going to make the difference. North Star, vision, gaps, pillar, right? That's where we should be at this point. Okay, now you've mapped out your goals. I want to give you one of the most counterintuitive but powerful parts of leadership planning. Your growth in 2026 will be defined not by what you add, but what you stop doing. Effective leadership roadmaps must include a stop list. So at the top of your next page on this roadmap that you're building, I want a stop list. Put that at the top of the page. Without subtraction of the things you're doing, you simply won't have the capacity for the leadership habits, strategic thinking, influence building that are going to move things forward for you this year. It's not about adding. It's about subtraction and adding. Treat it like your wardrobe. One thing in, one thing out. Okay, maybe we don't all do that. I certainly do. I try. So I want you to identify the things that cannot come with you to 2026 because they're holding you up. Here are a few things that you might want to consider. One, I love this one, saying yes automatically. And I was a yes person for a very long time. This is the fastest way to derail your leadership goals if you are always a yes person. Overextended operators, this one is especially for you. If you find yourself saying yes all the time, you're probably overextended and you know it. Next one, overcommitting to execution. If you're still doing the work of 3 levels below you, this might be a version of imposter syndrome, by the way. You need to do all the work. You will never be seen ready as that next level above you. You need to stop overcommitting on execution, right? The third one, doing work that isn't yours anymore. Let someone else grow. You might be better at them than it, but they won't grow into it if you don't hold time for them. Let the system hold more. Let the execution grow. Ultimately, you won't grow if your team can't grow. Let somebody else do the work. Let them grow into it. Teach them, mentor them, and you will grow as a result. And then my next one, holding back your voice. If invisibility was comfortable last year, it cannot be comfortable this year. If you are the one that's invisible in the room, it's time to speak up this year. So this is the one you're going to stop doing. You're going to stop holding back. You're going to stop second guessing in those meetings. You're going to stop holding yourself to an impossible standard of perfection before you speak up. Which brings me to the next one, which is very closely linked, is waiting to be noticed. Leaders don't wait. Leaders signal their ambition. Leaders shape perception. Your stop list becomes that boundary that protects your future self. So stop waiting to be noticed. This is the moment to realize that boundaries and subtraction are not luxuries. They are leadership. This is the time to recognize that people-pleasing and perfectionism are no longer compatible with your growth. This is the time to begin naming and releasing the behaviors that have kept you hidden. And this is the time to stop doing low-level work and align your behavior with executive trajectories. This is the time to create space for strategic thinking, influence, and higher-level leadership. So give yourself a bit of time to go through that stop list. What behaviors, macro and micro, are holding you up that you need to stop this year? Okay. We're a long way through this, but now we need to turn this roadmap into a plan. A plan you can implement. A plan that sets you apart as a leader rather than a glorified IC that has got promoted to a leadership position. This is the time to step into your next level of leadership. Instead of setting dozens of resolutions and trying to overhaul everything at once, we're going to break this into 4 quarters. A quarterly theme with an overarching focus that supports that 2026 North Star, with monthly milestones within each quarter, what progress looks like in small, achievable increments. And then finally, you're going to break that each month into weekly habits. The leadership habits that create consistency, visibility, boundaries, strategic thinking, stakeholder engagement. What habits do you need to be bringing in? Remember, it takes a while to build a habit. There are so many different numbers out there. Depending on what kind of personality you are, how natural a thing is to you, it can take between 2 weeks and 6 weeks, in my opinion, for a habit. And that's for those of us who can build habits. Some of us struggle with habit building because of neurodivergence, and that's okay. But you still can have the habits written down. This is how senior leaders think. This is how we perform without burning out. This is where we compound our visibility, compound our influence. This is where you stop being vague in your aspiration and have structured transformation. When your roadmap becomes a quarterly plan, and it's going to take some time to do that. If you want help, by the way, I'm here for that. Your success becomes predictable, not accidental. It becomes a thing that's going to happen. If you've always wondered, why am I not successful? I would argue it's because you haven't had the right plan and executed on it. If you do the right things, change will happen. Now we close this with bringing it all together. I want you to take a moment and notice something. You've just created the foundation of a year that doesn't just happen to you. A year you shape with intention, strategy, and leadership. Planning is power here. This isn't your typical get a job in X number of weeks, days, months plan, but instead a plan tailored to where you need to grow. When we are women in a male-focused world, navigating systems that were originally designed for men, it's so incredibly important to have this focus, this plan, this, if I do this, I know success is inevitable. When you choose clarity, you choose acceleration. When you choose structure, you choose influence. When you choose a roadmap, you choose the future you've been craving. So here's your final step. If you've done everything we've talked about, review your roadmap monthly, refresh it quarterly. If you complete a pillar, move a new pillar in. Return to your North Star whenever you feel yourself slipping back into old habits. Your 2026 trajectory is not set by circumstance. It's set by you and your leadership. And of course, if you want support pulling all this together, putting it into action, if you want accountability, clarity, expert guidance, as you build the next version of your career, I'd love to help. If you're ready to make this year the year you change your career trajectory, I'd love to support you. You can either subscribe for more content on this every week in the podcast, or if you'd like to take things to the next level, head over to the show notes and there's a link there to book a discovery call for support with me. No obligation. We just have a chat, see where you're at, see what you need to do this year. This is your year. You're ready for it and you're more capable than you know.